Hi, this is Nick at Atlantic Laser Scanning. Today we're going to take a look at a project issue that we get questions on quite often. People that go and they scan a location and then they have to come back and finish the scan, whether it's a week or month, a year later. They didn't use any targets. In this case, it's an indoor scan. So we can take this already existing project that was scanned earlier, go into Explore. We've got a fully registered project, and here's our building. Now we're going to have to go into, instead of putting the SD card into the computer and allowing it to automatically download, that would actually create a second project, and then we would either way have to combine the two. In this case, we're just going to jump into the project and open up our raw scans folder. And if your project has already been downloaded onto the SD card or from the SD card onto your computer, this is what your raw scans folder is going to look like. If it's still on the SD card, you're going to be looking at a bunch of what looks like manila folders. Either way, you would just take and drag and drop, whether it's the manila folders out of the raw scans file in the SD card, or in this case, if it's already been downloaded onto your computer, you go into the raw scans folder, and your FLS scan files will look like this. And we'll go ahead and grab a bunch of them out, and we're going to drag and drop them right into the existing project. We can do all of them, but for time's sake, we're just going to grab a bunch of them. And we'll drag them, and I'm going to drop them in the main scans folder, not in the actual cluster that's already been created. And it's a good idea to create that cluster, because this way you can maintain your registration from previously. And you've got a second cluster you can create just by right-clicking on the main scans folder, going to New Cluster. We'll just call that Scans 2. And we'll take the new project files that we just imported with a drag and drop and then put them in the second cluster. Now, as you can see, we've got the original cluster that was scanned 6 months previous, and it's already been registered, and the secondary cluster, which was scanned 6 months later, and it's now in the same project. We will go ahead and register the secondary scan cluster, the one we just drag and dropped, by just going into our registration or our pre-processing page. In this case, since there were no spheres or checkerboard targets, we'll just jump right into registration. And as we can see, we've got our Scans 2 cluster down here. We can perform an automatic registration by just clicking here. We'll leave the default cloud to cloud as it is. Everything else we can leave as it is on the page. Go to the top right hand corner and register verify. And it looks as though our newest scan set came together just fine. So we've got green lights on our most recent scan set, and obviously green lights on the scan set that were done 6 months prior. We can pop into the Explore button here, and we've obviously got 2 sets of scans. Each of these clusters is locked, and the reason that's significant is when we go up here and unlock the scan manager for the main scans folder here, when we put these 2 scan clusters together, we don't want the computer to have to go and re-register each one of these scans. By locking each of these 2 clusters, the computer is now treating this as 2 scans, 2 separate entities, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just making this 2 entities that it registers together much quicker, much easier on the system. So always when you get a green or the best registration light that you can, lock that cluster so that it doesn't continue to retry to remaster and put it together again every time you try to put clusters together. Now, we can go and directly jump into our registration page. If we want, let's first take a look at what this looks like. We're going to have two separate clusters and they're not going to be registered together. We're going to go ahead and load all of them. As you can see, everything is loaded. We've got two separate clusters. Each cluster is in a completely different plane here. And while you can see that it looks as though it's the same building, obviously this project was scanned two different times in the same building. It didn't obviously put it together. We have not registered the two separate scan days together, but there are only two entities, two clusters instead of all these scans to try to put together. So a couple different options here. We can go ahead and we can grab the scans and sort of try to place them together. If you already know that your scans are pretty close, this is sort of the general area that you had both of your scan days conducted was on that side of the building, you can do that, or just go directly into this main scans folder. We'll jump into the registration page, and we collapse these two clusters just to make it simple to look at. We've got these two separate clusters. We've got an option right here to start automatic registration. It'll bring us to the same basic page. We can do a top-down registration. Why don't we just do a top-down cloud to cloud? Top-down is going to put the two scan clusters together. Cloud to cloud will then tighten up that registration and give us an even more accurate reading. As our clusters looked as though that, yep, they've come together just fine. We'll say yes as they're registered correctly and jump into our Explore page to see how it looks. And now that we know that it's come together, we can go ahead and create Project Point Cloud. So as you can see, regardless of how much time it was between the two scan projects, because the structure is the same, not a whole lot changed inside this particular project. Putting the two scan dates together, because there were overlapping scan data, they didn't just scan on one side of the building 6 months ago and the other side of the building that you couldn't see from the first side. Everything was in the same general area. Everything came together as though it was done the same day. Now, once this Project Point Cloud is put together, we can go ahead and create a clip box and do any kind of measuring we like on specific pieces of equipment, but we'll get to that later. Thank you and good luck.